say how honored and privileged we feel that you sought us out and that you're here in Nagaland today. We are a land of contrasts, as you may have well noticed on your journey from Kohima to Dimapur. You will have seen the wonderful things we are doing with the name of development, the road construction. It's simply mind-blowing, really, what is happening. But I'm here really because there are so many young people here. And Nagaland, like I said, a land of contrast. On one side, we have faith, Christian faith. It's so strong. And yet, at the same time, we wonder where this faith goes when it comes to issues of development, of working with land, nature, our resources, really. And secondly, there is also this, our aspirations are so high, but our priorities, we have challenges with our priorities. But I know you are here on a mission really to understand also the special status that Nagaland enjoys with Article 371A and how the state of Nagaland has been able to use this to protect its own rights, to protect its future, and to determine the course of its development. And I'm not sure, I'm not clear how much of an opportunity you had last evening in Kohima to really understand the implications and how we are utilizing Article 371A. But just to kick off the discussion, I think a lot of university students are here, and I'm sure they would also want to ask you a lot of things as to how the movement in Leh, which has galvanized and really been a catalyst for imagination of indigenous groups to state their rights and to demand their rights and to have a say in their development, has been so important and very cathartic for us as well here. And so without saying much more, I will just briefly, so that everybody else can participate. In Nagaland, we have a population of more than 50% of our population is youth under the age of 35. So that's a really young force that we have. And also at the same time, we have a political situation. As you know, the Indo-political Naga talk has been ongoing, and there is really no watertight compartment solution that has emerged. But at the same time, we have been charting our own course of development, and many a times, environmental and sustainable development is left behind, and economics also takes a priority, and sometimes a lot of power play of politics, which is normally the game, takes precedence, and we're not really sure whether things which are of utter importance for people's sustainable livelihood. Let's say we're in Dimapur town. I'm just opening up the discussion for everybody. We are in this town of Dimapur. It's a state of 20 lakh people, 2 million people. And maybe Dimapur has a population of about 5 maximum 5 lakh people. But there is no water supply. Water supply, it's absent. So everybody, every building, every hospital, every colony is digging wells or boring wells to have to have water supply, to get their own water supplies. And I think this is something that really points to dire consequence in the very near future. So these are some of the issues, and then in contrast comes Article 371A, where we have a right out over our land and resources. But again, even in this, there are some times where the rights of communities over land and resources can come in direct clash with developmental activities. For example, the river, the Chate River, which you may have crossed on your way, is actually the river where the water supply of Dimapur, they dam the water and refine it. Not refine, what's the word? Treat it, yes, and then supply. But because of construction of the railway line and of roads, contractors are willy-nilly fetching sand and boulders from the upper reaches. So that automatically disturbs the clarity of the water and increases turbidity. This is causing immense problem. But when you approach the villages who are in whose land this river passes through, we are told by the department that the council then says that it is land, it is river, which is passing through our land, so we have right to access this. So these are some of the smaller nitty-gritty details that come up, like when we talk about Article 371A, and also I think, I don't know whether others will agree with me, but what I've seen on the ground is Article 371A also, it's a great constitutional article, but it comes with accountability. So I would like to, just open up this floor today, and maybe we would like to also hear from you, sir, on what you perceive and what you understand of Article 371A, perhaps, and what are the things we could also learn from your experiences of leading a movement in Leh Ladakh today. Thank you.
Yes, we came here to learn more about Northeast and Nagaland and the challenges you face in keeping your culture, your identity, and through that, the environment safe and healthy. We came here for a seminar in Karbi Anglong, in Necu, which was about 75 years of 6th schedule, which is another form of constitutional provision to help indigenous people keep their culture, like 371A here. So first of all, I rejoice the fact that Government of India actually kept such provisions like the 6th schedule while the constitution was being framed, and it wanted to not just tolerate but actually strengthen the diversity of India. It was a spirit of the constitution framework, and we need to make the best of it and take it forward to put it to good use. Later, 371 in case of Nagaland, in the case of Mizoram and many other states, was also a provision to help us keep our identity, keep our culture. And when I talk of culture and identity, I connect it directly with environment, because culture is not just about dress and food and music, it's about how we relate to nature, environment, and how we take stewardship of it. Many people ask me when, as an environmentalist, I connected with the movement in Ladakh for safeguards under 6th schedule. They say, what is the relation? 6th schedule is to protect indigenous tribal people, for identity, for customs, culture, and development. Why do you bring environment in? So I always say, and I was telling yesterday also, that to me the best way to keep nature healthy is to entrust it, entrust the stewardship of such fragile ecologies all over Himalayas, and surely here in the Northeast, starting from Hindu Kush, which is very fragile and which affects the rest of the continent, the subcontinent, on both sides, on the Indian side and on the Chinese side. Roughly 2 billion people depend on the waters of the Himalayas, most of which are frozen as glaciers, especially in our part of the world. So the Himalayas host most fresh water after the 2 poles, and therefore it's often called the 3rd pole of the planet. So when you're dealing with such sensitive areas, you really have to be very careful. You have to be careful with the whole planet, but these are hotspots, very sensitive places. And the best way to deal with such places is to entrust the local indigenous people, because they can best take care of it as they have done for centuries and millennia, and they are the most invested in these landscapes and ecologies, because for generations they will bear the consequences. So if we leave it to government bureaucrats, they come for 3 years and go away, or 2 years. They won't care about what happens to generations that will come. Or we leave it to corporates. They'll be around for 10, 15 years till they have extracted everything. And then again, people who live there, the indigenous tribal people, will have to bear the consequences. So it is best to engage and trust the indigenous people. This was a thought I carried for engaging with this movement, because apart from cultural identity and maybe development, it gives us powers to manage our own area, whether it is 6th schedule or 371A. And that's the best way, is what I've been sharing all along, why this connects to today's challenges with the environment and climate change. Of course, when our Constituent Assembly was framing these provisions, they, I don't think, thought of climate change back in late 40s, early 50s. But to respond to the challenge of the 21st century, which is not about Cold War or World War, or the biggest war will be with nature and not between nations, more with nature, and we will be definitely the loser. So to deal with that, I always propose these safeguards to let people manage their own fragile ecologies through their ancient wisdom and response of people who have to live there. Yet people used to question me, and I was sharing yesterday that recently there was a big development, which you should also know, that actually validates what I was trying to say all along, but not taken seriously by many. Recently, there was a COP, Conference of People of the United Nations. One is happening in Baku, COP 29, but 2 weeks ago another finished, COP 16, about biodiversity, which I'm sure you must all be very concerned. And one of the main resolutions that they reached in that was that biodiversity can be best taken care by strengthening the indigenous peoples of the region. Almost exactly what I was trying to convey, but without any connections, just parallelly happening. So therefore, now that it is a global understanding, we all should be able to push it and use it, not just for the government to see it as an environmental and climate change solution also, such safeguards that you get in 371A and we seek in 602, not just as environmental solutions, but also to live happily in these regions for many millennia to come. And that's how we are looking at it, at least I, because apart from rights, political rights and development opportunities, we have to respond to this huge challenge of nature that we will be seeing more and more in the coming years. So therefore, it is a responsibility upon all of us. It's not just about government, developing or destroying the region or nature around us, but it is also to ourselves. It reminds us of our own responsibility. We are taken as stewards of nature. When they pass this resolution, they're assuming as a given that of course the people of the region will take good care of their own region. But we have to stand up to that, because sometimes when we are not left to ourselves as our ancestors responded to nature and ecology, as indigenous tribals, when we are cultured in another culture, for example, in Ladakh, people have always been very respectful of nature. But when they go to these schools that are modeled on London or New York, who again are not what their nations were for centuries or millennia, they are shaped by the Industrial Revolution. An Industrial Revolution is not something God created. It is man-made, man-created, which actually corrupted and polluted a lot of the purity that God created in human beings. So it sent human beings on a rampage of profitability, exploitation, and all that. And an offshoot of that is the education system that we get. So when we are dipped into that education system, we perhaps become no different from somebody in Mumbai, Delhi, or New York who comes to exploit the Himalayas. So that's the danger. We have to learn from our ancestors, who perhaps were nature worshippers also. In fact, I say everybody should become nature worshippers. The new religion of the 21st century should be nature worship, approached by different paths. There should be Hindu nature worshippers, Christian nature worshippers, Buddhist nature worshippers, Muslim nature worshippers, but everybody's religion should be nature worship in this century. Otherwise, we'll be actually committing suicide. So, therefore, we have a huge responsibility also to take stewardship. In Ladakh, I've been, after calling for the government to safeguard Ladakh, save Himalayas, we say, save Ladakh, Ladakh bachao, Himalaya bachao. Now, recently I've been saying, Ladakh को लद्दाखियों से भी बचाना होगा. Yeah, we can be no less dangerous to our own place if we become like that in our mindset. Then just because of our facial features or names doesn't matter. We could do a lot of damage. So similarly, in the Northeast, we have to stand up to that. What is expected, the local indigenous people can safeguard this region. They can also do as much damage, but we have to stand up to that expectation. Now, I'm an atheist, or rather agnostic about God, so it is more challenging for me. For somebody who believes in God, has a faith, it is much easier. Like in the prayer, it was mentioned that to keep this beautiful world beautiful, this creation of God, keep its beauty. So then your faith, your God, urges you to keep that beauty. It must be so much easier for people who have a faith. For me, I have to convince myself and motivate myself to see the reasons and therefore do it. For you, it should come naturally that our God wants that. His creation, how can we destroy? If we destroy His creation, we are destroying God. It is blasphemy. I don't know why we don't treat, damaging nature as damaging a church. That's how we have to see. And it is easier for you, therefore, I would say, any believer. But for me, yes, I have to find the reason. Similarly, another thing that destroys nature and nations is our morality and ethics. How strong we are on the side of truth. And when that erodes, nature follows. Then people themselves start selling off their nation, their nature, and so on. Again, it is difficult for an atheist or agnostic person because he or she has to self-motivate, because there is no faith that makes me do so. But for you, it must be so easy, because God is about truth and morality and ethics. So how can these children of God sell off their own well-being and future? So corruption in a God-believing region doesn't go well in my head. And therefore, we have to become a clean community, clean society, because only when we are clean, we'll see justice elsewhere, no? It's all about justice, fairness. But fairness and justice doesn't come when people are looking for benefits for themselves over others. Others' rights are taken by few people. That's not God's country, I believe. Yeah? So therefore, it's utmost important even to develop in material ways like London or New York. Many of us may not care as much about nature. Maybe we care more about material development. We want to become like London, New York, Singapore. Even there, this ethical morality plays a huge role. I always share with young people. I will share this with you. Most young people would like to be rich or be in a rich country, and that's why they flee and go to different countries in the world. But we must see why the nations with high GDP, high per capita GDP became that, why the rich became rich. If you look up the world's richest countries per capita GDP and look at the top 10, I'll give you an exercise to do it this evening. You look up top 10 high GDP nations, one thing, okay? Keep it aside. Then you look up Transparency International's rating of most clean countries and most corrupt countries, okay? Take another list. You will see that the top richest countries, at least 7 or 6 out of them will be in the cleanest countries also, least corrupt countries also, which means that least corrupt, most ethical people also become rich. So even the path to richness, which I don't care so much about because these rich countries are doing a lot of damage, but whatever you want to do, whether to be rich or save nature, people who are true to themselves are the best ones to achieve it. So this is very interesting. We often want to be rich by any which way. And actually one person may for a short while, but the whole community never gets rich that way. And that's why highest GDP ratings, whether it is Luxembourg or Singapore or few in others in Europe, will also be the least corrupt countries in the world. And I think we should learn from such things and be true to ourselves. And I'm saying it more from, that's when we can take best stewardship of our own communities, our own peoples, and the nature that we must all learn to worship. Yeah? So just a few things from our part of the world where we are struggling to get safeguards for our indigenous tribal culture, customs, right over land and forests. And there we want to connect it not just with culture and development but with nature also. And so it's a struggle. If you have been following, we are trying to do it in the most peaceful way possible by inflicting pain on ourselves. There are two ways, and we have chosen this, where we sit on fast for weeks together. The last one was 16 days, the one before was 3 weeks, and in between, after 3 weeks of fast, we did a march from Leh to Delhi, more than a month walking down to show to the other side their commitments and their responsibilities, because we were promised these safeguards in the 6th schedule after the Ladakh Union Territory was formed. So to remind them of their commitment, we are taking the pains. And the effect of that, some people say this will not work, you have to be more assertive, some say more aggressive, but actually we saw it working because of the peaceful ways, our message has reached most of the country, far to the east and south and so on. Even within the membership of the ruling party, they started coming to meet us. Your cause is so just, we can't help but support you and know that half of our party is with you. So much so that those at the helm of the party are finding it difficult to keep their own people together with them. Understand? So there is power in peaceful ways also, and we want to experiment that part of Mahatma Gandhi.
Human alternative institutes. So, what message that you wanted to convey in using the materials that you use in order to, construct a building, and what do you, have, for example, the indigenous community like us, in order to, bring back that which we have already lost, whereby we tend to be more, succumbing towards the corporatizations or even structures. Thank you.
Thank you. The question was about the way we build in our institute and we promote. Just to tell those of you who may not be familiar, we build with local natural materials like earth, mud, and wood, and so on. You could be building with what you have around, maybe bamboo, maybe mud, earth. And the way we build is not primitive, shelter alone, but we can do that also for those who are evolved enough to value very simple dwellings. We have to evolve and qualify for that, but if we are ordinary people wanting swanky, sleek looking houses, then we build houses that are as good or better than the best in the US or Europe. Because we say the ones in Europe and USA are modern. Modern means they look good, clean, and they're comfortable. They keep you at plus 22 in the winters and plus 20s in the summer. So very modern, but only modern. Because to do that, they destroy the whole planet. They run big boilers, heaters in winter to achieve that plus 22, and in summers they run air conditioners, which could not be, there couldn't be a worse machine than air conditioners for the planet. They guzzle energy, release CFCs and so on. Anyway, so all that it takes to make that modern building, and we make buildings that are built of the earth that you dig under your feet, and that stay at plus 22 in winter without a drop of oil or a blade of grass burned, just with the sun's energy. So you get the same comfort, and it can be beautiful also. Things of goodness should be beautiful also, we believe. Beautiful and not a drop of oil in heating, and in summer they stay cool naturally also in the 20s. So modern is when you destroy the world to live in comfort. Beyond modern is when you do the same but without destroying anything around you. Actually, it's not even sustainable. You talk of sustainable building. Sustainable is sustaining the same broken system is not a solution. You need regenerative, restorative solutions, not just sustainable. So these houses are actually restorative. They heal. You know, you have food, which is neither bad nor good, but you have medicines which actually heal you. So these become healing solutions, because when you use the sun to heat, you spare the wood, you spare the dung, and the dung goes into nature, becomes manure, and more flowers bloom, more trees grow, and the wood, if it is not cut, it is on the branches and grow even bigger. So actually your house heals nature. So that's what we try to do, and I think we should take pride in our old customs and modernize them, make them so beautiful that you don't think of backward, old, primitive ways. Yeah? Nobody would do that in the houses that we build, but they are very traditional in the material, very modern in their operation. We use all sun's energy, solar energy, and again in the house, normally another bomb we throw on nature is our toilets. Every time we use the toilet, we flush 10 liters. Actually, we human beings need only 3 liters to survive in a day. We need 30 liters to flush. So you can imagine what we are doing to nature. So these houses that we are building have compost toilets where no water is needed, dry, and actually manure comes out of it. And when manure comes out by recycling the nutrients, then you don't have to depend on fertilizer from factories, which are priced so high because they break atoms of molecules of air to extract nitrogen, which is very expensive. So every fertilizer company is next to a huge generator, belching smoke, polluting. So when your factory of fertilizer is attached to your bedroom, your plants grow without that. And you don't have to take loans, you don't have to commit suicides, yeah, which is what is happening with farmers. So that kind of ecos, yeah, homes, we hope to spread to save the ecology. And I think you here have a different way. Bamboo, beautiful material. I was so sad to see a very learned person in the seminar saying that, oh, people in the villages are so backward, they live in bamboo house with mud plaster and mud floor. I was thinking that's the most beautiful thing. Just that it has to be done beautifully and with dignity so that they feel proud. And I'm sure there will be a time when people in bamboo and mud houses will look down upon concrete houses, but because they will be so evolved, they won't look down upon it. But will take good happiness out of it, because these concrete buildings are actually another bomb that human beings, I told you, it's the third world war, not between nations, but man and nature. So one of the bombs is our toilets, another is concrete. You know, for every ton of concrete, 0.64 ton of CO2 is emitted. Almost a ton for each ton. And we are doing so much damage to nature. Not just globally, that's global warming, CO2 emission. Locally, because we are building with concrete in such large scale, all your rivers are being stripped of the sand, and they have sand mining, sand mafia, which then makes the whole area collapse. All that people talk about how to stop sand mining and sand mafia. I say, look at how to change the way you build. Go away from concrete and you won't need sand, and then it will stay in the river. So go look for what beautiful things bamboo can do, mud can do, revive what your ancestors used to do, and make the best thing out of tradition and modernity.
Spark the imagination of your entire community. How was that? Because that is clearly a challenge for us here in Nagaland, for communities to gather, rally around certain rights which they know are their rights, but to really come out in a peaceful way. How do you do that? And how do you also educate your people on the situation, the dire consequences if the sixth schedule is not brought about?
I just say that to gain the confidence of the community, you have to really work hard. You have to really work hard and for long. You have to be trustworthy, and it's not easy in a quick way. So we have been connecting with the people over decades. My earlier initiatives were in education. So I would go village to village, sensitizing people about the importance of good education, that connect. And then you have to be sincere and trustworthy. And that doesn't happen overnight. So 3 or 4 decades of selflessly working for the people makes them think that it must be pure, it must not be for himself, and if we look back, he's not done anything that was selfish for own sake at the expense of the people. Therefore, this cause must be really important. And then, if you inflict pain on yourself, weeks of hunger, then people see through all this and see that it's a pure cause. So that's why I was saying morality and ethical records are very important for leadership. In Ladakh, that's highly valued. Like we have with us Mr. Dorje, he is currently the chairperson of the movement, Apex Body of Leh, and earlier he was chairperson of the Autonomous Council in Ladakh, and as was introduced, he was a cabinet minister in the Jammu and Kashmir government. Now, many places, many people think, oh, a minister in the government must have made a lot of money. Yeah, that's the common image people have. But in Ladakh, it's very different. He would be the cleanest person you can imagine, never compromising on anything that belongs to the people, and going any length or breadth to keep his uprightness. And therefore people connect. Therefore people connect. And that's why I was saying we have to think of nature, God's creation, this beautiful world, and walk the path that God shows of truth, of fair, just path. We just see it logically, this is the best path. You are guided by your faith in God to take the path. Whichever way we come, we'll have the same results, that people will connect and see that it is for the people. And I think that's what has made it easier, though it is not very easy, but less difficult, I would say. Thank you.
What you see
is the role of women now in this nature conservation and nature movement?
Huge role, huge role. I just wish men gave them a chance. I always say, no, ecology, ecos is home. Ecos means home. Taking care of home, who is the best? Father or mother? Mother always takes care of the home. Father takes care of other things and in different ways. But mother has to take good care of the home. I wish more role was given to women, but because we are just coming out of a phase in our evolution where brute force was needed, still men are in that hangover. That's why men occupy most places, because we are coming out of hunter-gatherers and so on, where men had to be, where brute force was needed and men somehow have more of that. But as we evolve into a future where that violent, aggressive survival is no more needed, women will play bigger and bigger role. And if, I always feel, if women were heading this world, different governments, we wouldn't have had a First World War and a Second World War and the fear of a Third World War. So I say this, but then people say, you don't know, women, look at women leaders in politics, they're as aggressive, yeah? They see your neighbors maybe. So I say, yeah, women can be aggressive in a men's world, but that would be an exception. And men can be as gentle as mother, but that would be an exception. Normally, they are very motherly, and this earth needs a mother to take good care. And I think all governments should have a woman as home minister. No? When it comes to managing the home, the minister should be a mother. Much of these, conflicts in the nation would not have happened if there was a motherly leader leading the home ministry.
Nagaland TV, Sop Manulaga Awas. Watch us live on Geo TV and on your television sets as well. For Dimapur viewers, we are on channel number 994 in Global Chapter, and Kohima and Mokokchung viewers, switch to channel number 138 on Hornbill Digital. For all news and updates, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.